If you smell what The Rock is cooking.
WBCB presents Pro Wrestling Weekly.
Tell me he didn't just say that.
Call in with a question or comment at 215-949-3232 or 888-922-2149.
The Tower of Power, too sweet to be sour, funky like a monkey, ooh yeah.
And now, here's your host of Pro Wrestling Weekly, Fearon Derry.
It doesn't matter what your name is.
Really? Yeah!
Hello and welcome to a Pro Wrestling Weekly Websclusive. That's right, this is just for the internet because I'm bumped from the airwaves due to high school football, but I still have a lot to talk about, a lot to bring to you. So Fearon Derry here with you. No Lucas the intern, no Nick Cataldi pushing buttons. I'm doing it all here, bringing it all to you and talking about a whole bunch of different news, notes, reaction, Facebook, feedback, and a whole bunch more. No phone calls, obviously, as this is recorded and broadcast exclusively for the web on YouTube. You know where it is because you're listening to it right now. Makes sense. Let's get right into it. Night of Champions. A whole bunch to talk about with that. The lead story coming out of it, though, Daniel Bryan pinning Randy Orton to win the WWE Championship, but he isn't exactly going to hold on to it for long, and we'll talk a little bit about that once we get through the Night of Champions results. Not exactly a great night for any of the three of us. Little Alex, who did bring in his picks after the show last week, but before the actual pay-per-view. He went 3-3. I went 3-3. Lucas the intern 2-4. Still not doing bad for 2013. 54-31 overall. Alex just over 500 with 26-23. Lucas, he's got a lot to learn. He's 5-9 so far over the past couple of pay-per-views, but he's got time to learn. Let's go over the results. Primetime players, they beat the Real Americans, Tons of Funk, the Uso Brothers, and 3MB in that tag team turmoil match. That ended up being the kickoff match to the pay-per-view, and they earned a title shot, which I found out during the pre-show that it was going to be later that night. So I could have thrown a pick in there, but trying to call Little Dude and Lucas when they have school the next day, it's not even worth getting into. And then, well, the comparison that was thrown for Night of Champions was it was essentially a $45 episode of Monday Night Raw, and that's partially because Triple H, well, he led off Night of Champions with a promo in the middle of the ring. Out came Curtis Axel and Paul Heyman. Heyman, of course, trying to beg out of the handicap match later in the night. Curtis Axel got a little mouthy with Triple H, brought up the fact that Axel beat Triple H pretty early on. I think one of Axel's first matches actually coming back as Curtis Axel, ignoring that whole Michael McGillicuddy thing. So Triple H deciding to book Axel in a preliminary match, defending his Intercontinental title. Since it is Night of Champions, all the titles should be defended. So that's for all the purists out there saying, hey, all the titles aren't being defended. What's going on here? Well, Triple H took care of that. I guess that was best for business. And booked him in a match against the first person he saw in the back, and that happened to be Kofi Kingston. Curtis Axel beating Kofi Kingston in a nice, roughly 14-minute match to start the official pay-per-view. Now, they had polls going on throughout the night of the greatest respective champion based on that championship match, and a lot of head-scratching votes and choices that were thrown out there. As far as they gave you 5 options for each. For the greatest Intercontinental champion of all time, your choices were Ravishing Rick Rude, Pat Patterson, the original Intercontinental champion, Mr. Perfect, Chris Jericho, and the Honky Tonk Man, the longest reigning Intercontinental champion in the title's history. And the fans voted Chris Jericho with 63% of the vote. I don't know. I would have gone either Honky Tonk Man or Mr. Perfect over Jericho, although Jericho has held the title more times than anybody else, and maybe that factored in, him being a 9-time former Intercontinental champion. But I don't know. Having it the most times, does that necessarily make you the greatest? I mean, if you're going by that, then Jerry Lawler's the greatest heavyweight champion of all time because he won the USWA championship like 78 times or something crazy like that. Yes, that's hyperbole, factoids. Don't. Oh, it was actually 26 or 27. No, I know. It's called exaggeration. It's called hyperbole. Been getting a lot of flack over stupid things lately. I'll talk a little bit about that coming up later. Then we had the poll for the Best Divas Champion. Choices: Fabulous Moolah, Michelle McCool, Wendy Richter, Lita, and Trish Stratus. Trish Stratus winning overwhelmingly with 56% of the vote. I thought Moolah would have gotten a little more love. I mean, she held the belt for what seemed like decades. But, again, younger fans are probably like, who's the Fabulous Moolah? I don't know. I know who Trish Stratus is, and probably some of the teenage demographic is going, oh, okay, Trish not only was a great champion, but she was also the most attractive. So, sure, we'll vote her. Trish winning with 56% of the vote, Lita with 29%. Then AJ Lee came out to defend the Divas Championship against Natalya, Naomi, and Brie Bella in that fatal four-way, and she ended up winning by submission, Natalya submitting after putting on an interesting move, a double sharpshooter, having Naomi and Brie Bella, one stacked on top of the other, wrapping both of their legs around her leg and flipping them both over for a double sharpshooter, a really cool spot, to say the least. Then RVD, well, he defeated Alberto Del Rio, but by disqualification. So Del Rio is still the world champion. He wouldn't break the 5 count on his cross-arm breaker, so the referee disqualifying Del Rio. Van Dam winning the match, but not the World Heavyweight Championship. Alberto Del Rio still holding the title. Then they held a poll for the best world champion in history, and odd listing. You had Batista, Edge, The Undertaker, Ric Flair, and Booker T, and Booker T won. I don't know what's going on with those operating the WWE app. I guess they're going by who they recognize, and I guess since they haven't seen much of Flair, The Undertaker, Edge, or Batista, they went with Booker T. I scratched my head at it. Then in a match not announced for the pay-per-view, The Miz beat Fandango by submission, and that's about as much attention as anybody paid to it. Then you had one of the biggies, Paul Heyman and Curtis Axel against CM Punk, the handicap elimination match. Curtis Axel, well, he ended up losing part of the way through, and it was just Heyman and Punk, and it looked like Punk was going to finally get his comeuppance, even handcuffing Paul Heyman at one point, getting ready to just absolutely obliterate him. And out comes the surprise newest Paul Heyman guy, Ryback, to lay out CM Punk, spearing him through a table that busted open Punk's back rather badly. I even tweeted during the pay-per-view, which I got to watch live at the Fox and Hound down in Center City, Philadelphia. I was there with AC Smooth, Albert Carabello, and, of course, Ryan, one of the longtime fans of the show and a good friend as well. But I tweeted that that shot was nasty, that injury through the table, and that it's more than likely going to be featured on a future WWE Don't Try This at Home promotion. So, yeah, that one, I mean, it wasn't as bad as Bob Holly's, but pretty close. It was one of those instantaneous, upon impact through the table, blood started trickling down the back. But anyway, thanks to help from Ryback, Paul Heyman winning the match, much to the surprise of all of us, and now it looks like there's going to be a chase between Punk and Ryback. They may even have that set up for Battleground coming up in a couple weeks, but again, we'll get to that in a little bit. Dean Ambrose pinning Dolph Ziggler to retain the U.S. title. And then the best U.S. champion poll. Interesting names. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Sergeant Slaughter, Harley Race, Bobo Brazil, going old school, and Sting. And much to the shock of the WWE higher-ups, Sting ended up winning the poll. Yes, even though Sting works for TNA at the moment. Go figure. Sting voted the best U.S. champion in WWE history. And then that tag title match that wasn't exactly expected by me, but I probably should have figured. The Shield defending the tag titles against the Primetime Players, who already wrestled earlier in the evening, and the Shield, they retained the tag titles, beating the Primetime Players. Then they threw out the best tag team champion poll, and it was a joke. The Legion of Doom, the Hart Foundation, the British Bulldogs, the Wild Samoans, and DX. No, not the New Age Outlaws, but Triple H and Shawn Michaels. So, of course, guess who won? Yes, DX, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels. No love for Demolition? No? Not going to throw that out there? I mean, you could say Demolition or the Legion of Doom. I'd probably go with the Legion of Doom. I mean, the Hart Foundation, certainly. Wild Samoans, great old school pick. The British Bulldogs, I don't know if they belong in there necessarily, but Shawn and Triple H? Really? I don't know. Makes me scratch my head. And then they threw out the best WWE champion poll. Now, this I can see, this would be a great list if you take out one name and put another. Here are the 5 that they had for this. Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena, CM Punk, and Triple H as far as the best WWE champion of all time. Take out Triple H, put in Bruno Sammartino. Punk, you could probably take him out, and I know a lot of people are going to give me heat for that, and put in, heck, even The Rock. Although you could make a case for a lot of other names. Bob Backlund. I don't know why I went The Rock over Bob Backlund. Again, I guess new school versus old school. But, I mean, needless to say, there are other names you could throw in there. Hulk Hogan beat them all out, even though I figured the WWE Universe would go Cena first because he is the thing. But I guess people recognize enough history to know that Hulk Hogan kind of transcends the sport of professional wrestling and has for the last 30 years, Hulkamania running wild, that whole deal. So, yes, now we get to the WWE Championship match. I mentioned it in the beginning, Daniel Bryan pinning Randy Orton, but in a bit of controversial fashion. You know what? Here's the clip of it right here.
Slithering into position. RKO. Daniel Bryan backslide. Orton rolled through, and he caught it right in the back of the head. He's John Cena. Over the lane. Daniel Bryan did it. Daniel Bryan did it. Daniel Bryan did it. He's no longer a B+. Daniel Bryan is an A tonight. Is that the face of the WWE now? Yes.
Yes, all was right with the WWE Universe as Daniel Bryan beat Randy Orton to become WWE Champion. Although that referee, Scott Armstrong, his count was a little quick, as you heard there, and that would be addressed the following night on Monday Night Raw, and we'll talk about that on the other side of a quick timeout, as well as news and notes, Facebook feedback. Still a lot to do on this web-exclusive edition of Pro Wrestling Weekly, just for you, the YouTube audience. Not even on WBCB, just right here on YouTube.
And now, more Pro Wrestling Weekly with your host, Fearon Derry.
Sit down, shut up, and listen up.
Welcome back to the web-exclusive edition of Pro Wrestling Weekly here on September 21st, 2013. Fearon Derry here with you exclusively for the YouTube audience as I'm off the airwaves, but still a lot to talk about with Night of Champions, as well as a lot of news and notes coming your way and some Facebook feedback. I know I've been getting away from that on the on-air version of the show. Need to get back to that. But Fearon Derry here with you. No Lucas the intern, no Nick Cataldi, just me, a microphone, my news, notes, and opinions, and facts, because that's what I do. I bring those to you as a broadcast journalist. Let's go ahead and get to Monday Night Raw. As I mentioned before the break, Triple H, well, he noticed that the referee's count was a bit fast in the Daniel Bryan-Randy Orton match and felt the need to address it head-on right at the beginning of Monday Night Raw.
So in the amount of time that it took you in a normal cadence to count to 2, you made a 3 count last night. Scott, that was an incredibly fast count. How do you explain this?
It was a fast count. I don't know.
It was a fast count. I don't know. That's your reason. I don't know.
I made a mistake.
Scott, you are a senior official of the WWE, right? That kind of fast count does not just happen. How do you explain how that happened?
I made a mistake.
I made a mistake. Scott, I have known you for 15 years, right? I've never seen you make a mistake like that. I have never seen you make that kind of mistake, and if you've ever done anything, you've always fessed up to it. And I have the feeling right now that you're not telling me everything, Scott. What do you, tell me the truth. Come on, get it out. Whoa. Whoa, hold on a second. What did you do? Did you just say they've got us, Daniel? They're on to us. This changes everything. Scott, I will deal with you later. If you could please go to the back right now, please. Thank you very much for your time. Daniel, I'm ashamed of you. You have embarrassed yourself. You have embarrassed the WWE. You entered into a conspiracy with a WWE official to ensure a fast count so you could become WWE champion? Daniel, now you're gonna lie about it. Daniel, you leave me no choice. As of this moment, I am holding the WWE Championship in abeyance. I am not going to return the championship to Randy Orton, but Daniel Bryan, as of this moment, you are no longer the WWE champion. I can understand you're upset. I will investigate this further, and possibly there might be a rematch in the future. But as of right now, there is no WWE champion. Now, Daniel, I need you to do the right thing. Since you are no longer champion, I need you to hand over the WWE Championship belt to me. Daniel, I'm going to speak to you like a man. You have embarrassed yourself. You've disgraced yourself. You've disgraced the WWE Championship. You have disgraced your family. I would have thought Sean taught you better than this. Daniel, you are no longer the WWE Champion. Hand over to me the WWE Championship belt, or I will take it from you.
So the WWE Championship is being held under abeyance, which prior to this past Monday, I think the only people who knew what abeyance was probably those little like 11 and 12-year-olds who were excelling in the Scripps National Spelling Bee held every May or whatever it is. Because I know I didn't know what it was. I know a lot of words, but abeyance was certainly not one of them. And for those of you who aren't really sure either, well, I'll let you know right now, courtesy of thefreedictionary.com. Abeyance, standing for the condition of being temporarily set aside or suspension, or in a legal term, a condition of undetermined ownership as of an estate that has not yet been assigned. Basically, it means the title's being upheld or being suspended, or it pretty much means there's no champion. They're just using a fancy new word for it. And I guess they're teaching kids something, too. Look at that. World Wrestling Entertainment. It's educational, too. Yeah, I'm not buying that either. But we learned what a new word was. Good job, Triple H. Bravo. Anyway, WWE already setting up a couple of matches for Battleground, which is a mere 2 weeks from tomorrow. Yeah, that's right. We're in that fast, furious, and frenetic pace right now where we've got 3 pay-per-views in a 7-week span, all thanks to that huge gap between Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania back in February and April, respectively. There were no pay-per-views in March, so a month has to have 2 pay-per-views to make that 12 pay-per-view-a-year balance that WWE has. Therefore, 2 pay-per-views in October. The first of which being October 6th, 2 weeks from tomorrow. 2 matches already set, and we already saw both of them at Night of Champions. Alberto Del Rio giving another world title shot to Rob Van Dam based on the controversial disqualification ending, and based on the controversy of the WWE Championship, Daniel Bryan, Randy Orton for the vacant or abeyant or whatever word you want to use, for neither of them has the WWE Championship. They're going to go at it at Battleground 2 weeks from tomorrow. That would make it October 6th. Let's move over to TNA, and oh, do they have something interesting in a kind of good-ish way, or more of a head-scratching way. They have a lot of things that are head-scratching over at TNA. But AJ Styles, after winning the Bound for Glory tournament and will now face Bully Ray for the championship at Bound for Glory. Although someone may want to tell him, because I don't think he's mentioned Bully Ray once since doing so. Instead, AJ Styles has put his attention toward TNA owner Dixie Carter. And he had something that he was going to say, and he announced it was going to be this past Thursday on Impact, and boy, did he have something to say, and I got it for you right here.
I have been here since day one in Nashville, Tennessee, in the asylum, busting my butt with a band of brothers just trying to make this an alternative for you to watch. Just trying to put this company on the map, but poof, it happened. Dixie Carter's daddy bought her a wrestling company. No blood, no sweat, and no experience in wrestling at all. I mean, hey, the problem is that she broke up the chemistry that made TNA what it was. She broke up the chemistry, guys. That was the problem. All because she had stars in her eyes. And what happened to those stars? What happened to those X Division stars? What happened to Jerry Lynn? What happened to Low Key? I'll tell you what happened to those guys. Dixie Carter traded him in for MMA stars and guys who apparently needed a 2-year paid vacation to come down to TNA, do absolutely nothing, and go back where they belong. And for what? I'll tell you. So that Alex Shelley couldn't be here? So Jay Lethal couldn't be here? Petey Williams? All these great wrestlers are not here because of that very thing. And it me off. Am I the only one who's not pissed off about this? But here's your biggest mistake, Dixie. Your biggest mistake is staring you right in the face. You see, you've given me the opportunity to win your World Heavyweight title, and despite what the internet says, I don't have a contract here. And believe you me when I say this, Dixie, there's not a contracted wrestler back there that has any respect for you anyway. All those band of brothers that you picked off one by one, you left one standing. I'm gonna win that World Heavyweight title. And I'm gonna win it for me. I'm gonna win it for those band of brothers. I'm gonna win it for you. And Dixie, I'm gonna make you get on your knees and beg. And then I'm gonna make you pay. Well, say something. You know, I expected a tweet or something. We all know you can do that. I didn't get any response from him. Say something.
I've known you a long time, AJ. And I know honestly that for you to come out here and say these kind of things in this public way, that you mean them from the bottom of your heart. And I'm sorry. As president of this company, I have to be accountable. I hold myself accountable. I'm accountable to our investors, to the professionals that work in this ring, to my staff, to these fans. And AJ, I am accountable to you, and I owe you an apology. And I'm sorry. I am so sorry that I ever allowed you to think that you were important in this company. And I should have told you a long time ago that you have never been anything more than a little bit better than an average fish in any pond. And you hear what I mean? Any pond you might be in, AJ. And this whole phenomenal one stuff, it's an illusion. And by the way, an illusion that I created. A marketing gimmick for all of those wonderful 5-star matches that you used to have. And I say used to have because I can't freaking remember the last time you had one. And you know what else? Everything about you lately, in front of the camera, behind the camera, in the locker rooms, has been so subpar. that you would be lucky if we call you the marginal one, because I swear you are nothing. You are nothing like you used to be. Nothing. But I will tell you one thing. No, wait, everybody, please. I am very thankful. I am thankful to you. Honestly, thank you so much for allowing me to come into my ring on my show and have a chance to respond to all of the crap you have criticized me about in the last few weeks. And I hope now maybe we're a little bit more crystal clear and on the same page. By the way, without my daddy's paycheck, you would still be in a trailer. And this house that AJ Styles built that all these people always talk about, guess what? Dixie Carter built that house. She owns it, and you are lucky to ever have played in it. You hear me?
Hey, Dixie, before you go,
No!
why don't you put that microphone where it belongs?
Cut off that mic right now. Cut off this mic. Cut off the mic. This show is over. Cut that off.
Are you kidding me?
Dixie Carter turning off the microphone of AJ Styles and turning off the lights in the arena. Little nod to Teddy Pendergrass in the background. It was either that or the night the lights went out in Georgia. Could have gone either way with it, but
Turn off the lights.
figured I'd make things a little sensual, especially given their past with the whole Claire Lynch nonsense. All right, we've had enough fun with that. Trying to have fun. It's what we do around here. Although it seems like whenever I try to have fun, there always seems to be a little bit of controversy mired in the muck thrown along with it. And one of those, well, it happened last week on the show, and I'll address it coming up along with a bunch of other news and notes. And it's also part of some Facebook feedback. That's all coming up in segment 3 of this Websclusive edition of Pro Wrestling Weekly, solely for the YouTube audience. Pro Wrestling Weekly presents Today in Wrestling History, September 21. On this date in 1998, WCW Monday Nitro aired live from Boston, Massachusetts. In the main event, Stevie Ray and the Giant defeated Kevin Nash and Lex Luger in a tag team match. On this date in 2003, WWE held its Unforgiven pay-per-view. In the main event, Goldberg pinned Triple H to win the World Heavyweight Championship. On this date in 2009, WWE Monday Night Raw aired live from Little Rock, Arkansas. In the main event, Chris Jericho, Randy Orton, and The Big Show defeated John Cena, Mark Henry, and MVP in a 6-man tag team match. This has been Today in Wrestling History, September 21.
This is Jim the Anvil Neidhart of the Hart Foundation, and you're listening to Pro Wrestling Weekly with Fearon Derry on 1490 WBCB, baby. Yeah!
Welcome back to the first ever Websclusive edition of Pro Wrestling Weekly, normally heard on 1490 WBCB on the AM dial as well as online worldwide at WBCB1490.com. I'm your host, Fearon Derry, and I've been preempted. So I'm taking my usual on-air show and turning it into a webtacular just for the YouTube audience. That way there's still a show, even though I'm not on the air necessarily this week. Kind of shaking things up. Anyway, before we get to news and notes, I got to address something from last week that caught a little bit of controversy on the WBCB Pro Wrestling Weekly Facebook fan page, and you know me, I address controversies head on. And I mentioned a story last week, Titus O'Neil, the other half of Primetime Players, the one who hasn't gotten a lot of attention after the whole Darren Young coming out of the closet thing. And I mentioned that he recently started dating Omarosa, the evil villain infamous personality from The Apprentice, the first season of The Apprentice. And I threw a joke out there, which would be worse, dating Omarosa or dating a guy? Or I think I'd said dating a dude in last week's episode. And somebody, one of the listeners, took umbrage with it and put up a post saying, for someone who likes to tiptoe through the tulips about saying anything controversial on WBCB, and I took the quote off of there because, I thought it was ridiculous, but they went on to say that it's a bit odd to go in that direction, and it seems, and the word they used was homophobic, which, for those of you who know me, that's one of the most asinine things that I have ever heard. And I have no problem addressing allegations and accusations of that sort, especially considering it is completely 100% false. In fact, to look back about a year ago, there was an individual who no longer is associated with this show because that individual, actually it was a year ago right after the Night of Champions pay-per-view, felt the need to post some homophobic slurs on the page in reference to John Cena right around the time that he debuted the pink Rise Above Cancer t-shirts. And, as I said, throw some homophobic slurs in reference to a photoshopped picture of John Cena. And it was an attempt to be funny and an attempt to make fun of John Cena, although I found really neither to be the case. And that individual has been banned from calling in the show, contributing to the Facebook page. And moreover, I personally have blocked him because I can't stand the little rodent. But that's enough about that whole issue from a year ago. To say the least, I take those very seriously, and obviously in no way meant to... I thought it was pretty obvious which direction I was going with that. Dating Omarosa would be way worse. And I will say, for the record, that of those two things, I have done one of them. I'll let you figure out which one it is. I don't think I need to spell it out any more clearly than that. I think I probably already said too much about it. So, for those who thought there was some sort of an issue with that as far as me being homophobic, that couldn't be anything further from the truth. And those of you who have known me for a long time are certainly aware of that, and those of you who don't, well, you're learning now. All right, that's out of the way. Let me get to some news and notes here. First of all, the story of Impact being taken off the road, possibly. Yes, according to ProWrestling.net, TNA officials have discussed the idea of pulling the Impact tapings from the road and returning to a single location for the television tapings. Multiple sources are saying that Las Vegas and Orlando are two of the cities under the strongest consideration. In other TNA news, the Hulkster's contract to expire soon. That's right, Hulk Hogan's contract with the company expires on October 1st, according to multiple sources within the company. There is no indication that Hogan and TNA have come to terms on a new deal, and sources within the Hogan camp have declined to comment on the matter. Now, fans have been clamoring for refunds. I obviously played earlier everything having to do with Night of Champions and the main event finish. Some fans, well, they turned their disappointment with the current WWE storyline into a refund for Night of Champions. Several fans claim to have called Cox Cable and asked for a refund after Daniel Bryan's WWE Championship win at Night of Champions was overturned the next night on Raw. A Cox Cable representative confirmed that other people have called and received refunds because the finish of the show that they paid for was invalidated. WWE issuing a statement on the refunds, quote, while certain fans may not have liked the continuing storyline following Night of Champions, we're certain that the 3-hour pay-per-view event delivered all the entertainment and excitement expected from WWE. I don't know about either of those. That seems to be a little bit self-congratulatory patting on the back, and neither really happened. At least I don't believe so. Just throwing that out there. Some other news, Duke the Dumpster Droese arrested. Yes, former WWE wrestler Duke the Dumpster Droese, a.k.a. Michael David Droese, was indicted by a grand jury for 3 counts of delivery of a controlled substance. Droese allegedly sold pain medication to a police informant on July 1st and again on July 2nd. According to the indictment, he allegedly sold oxycodone and buprenorphine, which is known more commonly as Percocet, a pain medicine, and Suboxone, which is a step-down drug for those with addictions. Pays to be a pharmacy tech for a little while. I can give you these little tidbits and bits of information. The 45-year-old Droese worked for WWE from 1994 to 1996 with his infamous garbage man gimmick. He is employed as a special education teacher in McMinnville, Tennessee, and was suspended from his job without pay due to the legal issues. Drozy was released on a $10,000 bond. Now, in brighter news, WrestleMania 30 ticket sale date, that's been released. They announced yesterday, WWE did, that tickets for WrestleMania 30 will go on sale Saturday, November 16th at 11 a.m. Eastern. WrestleMania 30 will take place Sunday, April 6th, 2014, at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana, home of this past year's Super Bowl. Tickets ranging from $25 to $850, and they also have limited Gold Circle VIP packages for $2,000, including seating in the first 4 rows ringside, a Gold Circle VIP stadium entrance, collectible WrestleMania 30 ticket holder, and a commemorative WrestleMania 30 take-home folding chair. All that for $2,000, and I'm sure that flight and hotel is nowhere close to included in that. I know WWE was advertising travel packages. I don't know if they still are doing that or not, or if they sold out of those. I don't know. Extreme Kyle tried to get me in on it, but I don't know. Extreme Kyle has a lot of visions of grandeur that don't necessarily pan out. But he's still a good friend, so but I gotta call things like I see it. That's how I do as a broadcast journalist. And finally, former WWE wrestler hired as an NXT trainer. WWE rehiring Nick Dinsmore as a trainer for the WWE Performance Center in Orlando. Dinsmore previously worked for the company as Eugene back in the mid-2000s. Let's take a look at some Facebook feedback, of course, from the WBCB Pro Wrestling Weekly Facebook fan page. Hopefully I won't get accused of anything else here of insensitivity or whatever. Of course, following the pay-per-view, a lot of yes, yes, yes. And then, of course, after Raw, is Triple H really that greedy to wanting to keep Orton champion? The fast count ref excuse, really? So a lot of people not exactly on board with it. John, always good for a video game reference. Ryback's theme sounds like the new menu screen music from PlayStation 3's Twisted Metal. Only Twisted Metal is much more enjoyable than Ryback. And, oh dear, I was afraid this was going to happen. Dan from Chicago chiming in. I'm getting way too excited about Sting maybe going to WWE. Last night on the app, they showed a match between Sting facing stunning Steve Austin. Damn it, calm down, Danny, LOL. Yeah, pump your brakes on that, Dan. We've been hearing that every year for the last 3 years now. Oh, Sting's coming to WWE. Oh, Sting's taking on The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Please, let's not put the cart before the horse here. Got to remember, Sting's in his 50s now. Taker's 48. By the time Mania comes around again, he'll be 49. I don't know how many more big matches he's going to have in him, and I don't think he's going to rely on a 50-plus-year-old Sting to be able to carry him through a match. It's going to be... It'll be like Hogan and Flair from a couple of years ago when Flair was already north of 60, Hogan was in his mid to upper 50s, and everybody kind of had that same, really? This was a match that we wanted to see 25 years ago, but not now. And I have a hunch that while Sting and The Undertaker may not have been a 25 years ago demanded match, it's something that people might have wanted to see a little bit more recently than that. You know, maybe 15 years ago. It's a dream match. It probably won't happen. Then Ron chiming in, I knew it all the time. Triple H would strip Daniel Bryan of the belt. He's too power hungry. And more comments to follow from there, which all basically express the same disapproval of the McMahons at the top of this storyline. And people were talking, well, maybe Shane will come back since he left his job. I don't think WWE needs more McMahons in their storyline right now. We don't need Vince to come back. We don't need Shane. We don't need it to be like WrestleMania 2000 where you had Vince, Linda, Shane, and Stephanie all involved in the main event. There's already too much of that. Way too much of that. Just let the wrestlers be the focus. You've kind of seen this overall theme of authority figures taking the camera time and the spotlight away from the wrestlers, the superstars, what have you. What have we been talking about most of the last few weeks? Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, and, oh, by the way, Randy Orton and the Daniel Bryan WWE Championship battle. It's kind of almost been in the background to Triple H and the power struggle. Now you've got Dixie Carter over in TNA trying to be a heel authority figure. Isn't there supposed to be a title match about a month from now? October 20th, I think. Bound for Glory, AJ Styles, Bully Ray. Isn't that supposed to be a thing? Bound for Glory, something. But no, we've been talking about AJ Styles and Dixie Carter. It's frustrating. It's more than frustrating, if you will. And how could I forget? How could I forget the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, being on the mothership Monday Night Raw? Because that would have meant having to talk about Stephanie. But yeah, she decided that she'd give Dusty's son his job back, but he had to choose which son, either Cody or Goldust. And he basically told Stephanie to go straight to hell, which isn't as good as Vince saying, straight to hell, but close enough. And then she just said she said he could decide whether to be knocked out by the Big Show or dismembered by the Shield, and Big Show ended up getting ordered to knock him out. More tears from the Big Show. That's another wrestler who's getting ruined at the expense, or emasculated, I guess is the best word, at the expense of Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. I don't know. It's hard to say where things are going to go, but we'll be able to talk about it in person, live in studio next week, as I'll be back on the air with a slightly abbreviated show. I've been given permission to go up to 12:50, maybe 12:55, because we do have a high school football game with a little bit of a preview. Initially, it was supposed to be 12:45, but special thanks to program director Matt Miro extending the time a little bit because he knows I've been getting hosed a little bit lately. He sees the big picture, the landscape of things. He knows that this is 3 out of 4 weeks now that I've gotten the boot off the air completely. So any chance he can give a little bit, that's what he's going to do, and I certainly appreciate it. But thanks so much for tuning in. I will be back Saturday the 28th from noon until about 12:50 to get more of your live reaction to Night of Champions, more of your thoughts on the upcoming Battleground pay-per-view, where does TNA go with heel Dixie Carter, and what other thing am I going to say that's going to offend somebody? All that and more for Pro Wrestling Weekly, heard on 1490 AM WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. I'm Fearon Derry. Thanks again for listening to this first ever Websclusive, Webtacular, whatever word you want to call it, for Pro Wrestling Weekly.